Welcome to a special edition of the GGB Podcast, the industry's first and longest running podcast, now in our 16th year. I'm Roger Gross, the publisher of GGB, and today we feature a discussion with Jason Ader, the co-founder and CEO of SpringOwl Asset Management, on how his participation on the boards of major gaming companies has made a difference for shareholders. This week's program is brought to you by Konami Gaming. Later in the show, we'll talk about two Konami slot series ranked top-grossing premium lease games by Eilers and Krychek. Welcome to the Global Gaming Business Podcast. My guest today is Jason Ader, the president of SpringOwl Investments. Jason, great to see you. It's been a long time. We go way back together, you and I. Back to the American Gaming Summit in the early '90s when we put together this incredible conference that I kind of liken to the Silicon Valley conferences when they have all these top techie people would come together for a conference, and this is what we did with gaming 10 years before that.
That's right. Well, it's great to see you, Roger. Thanks for having me. We do go way back to the early '90s. For sure. And I've always appreciated what you've done for my career in the beginning. You helped me get the magazine launched, Global Gaming Business, and I've been very appreciative of that, and certainly admiring your career through all these years. So when we were back then, I was a young editor, and you were a young gaming analyst for Bear Stearns. And let's start from your Bear Stearns career. How did you get focused on gaming as an investment analyst? Well, how I got focused on the gaming industry was I worked for a money manager in really the late '80s, I think, maybe the early '90s, and he was a growth stock manager focused on growth industries. Okay. And there were two industries that he was really focused on at that time, and it was the cellular telephone industry, because nobody had a cellular phone back then, and the gaming industry. And he was focused on the gaming industry because Excalibur was just about to open, or had just opened, and so it was sort of the beginning of this new wave in Las Vegas of mega resorts, if you can believe that. It goes back to then. Right. Yeah. And Foxwoods, the Mashantucket Pequot tribe, just got their sort of rights to open a casino, so there was this potential of massive growth in the Native American markets. And first riverboat casino was approved, and so this money manager saw the potential for gaming to move well beyond the two locations that it was currently at in that time, which was Las Vegas and Atlantic City, of course. And both industries have done pretty well since then, mobile phones and gaming.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Both have done excellent.
I got assigned gaming. That's how I got involved with gaming. There were two of us. One became a cellular phone expert. I became the gaming expert.
Great. Well, that worked out for you, I'm sure. So then you joined Bear Stearns, and you were really considered the top gaming analyst on Wall Street for quite some time, and then you left. Why did you leave Bear Stearns?
Well, thank you for that. Bear Stearns was a great place, and it's just continued to have friends from there. And sure. I really very much wanted to move from being an industry expert and to being a principal investor. Mm-hmm. So I was fortunate, and Bear Stearns allowed me to transition, initially within the firm, and then spun off, outside the firm, and it was sort of a perfect, transition from an analyst to investment manager with the support of a world-class investment bank that had also been a pioneer in gaming. Everybody knows Mike Milligan as having been one of the first to lend to the gaming industry, and he did it very well in Las Vegas and started a lot of careers. But Ace Greenberg, the CEO of Bear Stearns at the time, he was really also right there and providing a lot of capital to the gaming industry in New Jersey. So there was a long history, with the lineage of Bear Stearns and gaming.
Sure, no question. And then did you just go and start SpringOwl right after that?
No, I've had now 3 investment management firms, all of which have focused around the gaming industry. And SpringOwl was formed about 8 years ago, and was much more focused than my prior firms in the past on opportunities in the online gaming space and gaming technology.
Sure. So You just mentioned you've been involved in all kinds of sectors. The big companies early on, and then the riverboat offerings, and then tribal gaming to a large extent as well. When some of the big companies became managers of that, and now you've taken your first SPAC, which is interesting. But let's talk about the online gaming part first. I mean, you did a great job with Playtech. Playtech is a British company that has incredible technology, but had some problems, in their management when it came to getting licensed in the United States and other really strict jurisdictions. So explain how you got involved with Playtech and why you thought they were really worthy of your attention at that point.
Well, we had been a long-time investor in a company called Amaya, which owned PokerStars brand and became the Stars Group, and under the leadership of Rafi Ashkenazi became the largest publicly traded gaming company in the world. And Rafi is just an amazing leader in online gaming and just brilliant at technology. So Rafi had been the COO of Playtech.
Right.
And so, I knew Playtech because of the relationship that, we developed with Rafi. And I should also point out, Rafi sits on my board of directors. Okay. And, in getting to know Playtech, it just, stood out to me as being really one of the most misunderstood and undervalued gaming companies with just absolutely amazing B2B technology, and technology that was processing 1 billion bets every single day. People don't realize that. Mm-hmm. And just a perfectly stable architecture across multiple payment systems. And I just didn't think that anybody else would be able to duplicate it with the size and scale that Playtech had. And if anybody tried, it would just take and then tried to duplicate the customers, that it would cost maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times the whole value of the company when we got involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no question. And you really have made people sit up and take notice. In fact, now Playtech is in play. They've got an offer from Aristocrat and another company, and who knows if that's going to be the last one. And it's a huge valuation as well. So does it matter to you which one they go with?
I think the highest bidder is always the best bidder in type of situations. But I would tend to prefer taking shares in company when that's viable too. So sure. we loved when we owned BWin Party and it got acquired by GVC, which now right. is the Entain Group. We loved getting shares in GVC and watch it go from a small AIM company to the FTSE 100. And I'd say the same thing with Stars Group. It was acquired by Flutter, and Flutter doubled in the first year of owning Stars Group. So maybe Aristocrat, we'll consider that. But right now it's a cash offer. So we'll all stay tuned for how it plays out.
Sure, absolutely. So you're pretty much known as an activist investor. Explain, in some basic terms what that means and how you work with the company itself, and not against the company, but to increase the value of the shares for their shareholders.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've been labeled the activist investor in the press, and sometimes, people get mislabeled, but there was a bunch of reports that we had been activist in some situations, maybe outspoken is a better word, like with BWin and IGT.
Sure.
We had a great, 8-year long-standing relationship with Las Vegas Sands, and, was involved in the company very early on, and, was for a very long time, involved in what was an amazing business turnaround after the financial crisis. And ultimately, Las Vegas Sands became the biggest hospitality company in the world. So I love working with management teams constructively and helping them build shareholder value. But there is potentially a moment when you are a shareholder where, you question whether management's working in the shareholders' best interests. And in that context, I haven't ever really been afraid to express my views if I don't think that's the case. But we have a great relationship with Playtech. We had a great relationship with Stars Group. Over time, our relationship with BWin became quite good. And obviously the memories, experience I had at Las Vegas Sands was one of my favorite as someone around the gaming industry.
Sure. Well, let's talk about some of the areas of gaming you've been involved in, online gaming. I mean, that's really been a success, and obviously there's still a lot of growth to go there. What's your prognosis for the online gaming operators as well as the B2B suppliers?
I like the online gaming industry very much. My yellow flag or red flag right now is just there's been a lot of price inflation. There's a lot of participants now in the marketplace, and there's an extraordinary amount of marketing spend. It's still really not a profitable business in the context of the U.S. sports betting industry. I very much think Flutter is a standout, and as a private company, Bet365 is a standout in terms of how much cash flow those businesses can generate, but across sports and casino, live table games. But it's still very early days in the U.S., and I think the potential is extraordinary. The prices are a little bit worrisome, and probably due for continued correction. There's been some pretty significant price corrections over the last 60 to 90 days. I much prefer right now the value in the traditional gaming business, land-based casinos. I just think we're starting to see the end of the pandemic and the beginning of a major travel recovery.
Yeah, no question. So you mentioned the price inflation. I think when state officials begin to see and begin to realize that they can make more money in taxes from online casino rather than sports betting, I think you'll see a quick turnaround. What is there? 5 states right now which legalize iGaming. So there's a tremendous growth potential there as well.
Definitely. I mean, my view was always sports, getting the states comfortable with sports betting and getting the leagues comfortable with sports betting was metaphorically like a Trojan horse. It sort of opened the door, and it was just inevitable that there was going to be online casino, online poker, live table games, and obviously esports betting is becoming a big growth area, and skill-based betting as well. So there's a lot of verticals that have the potential to solve the state challenges of generating revenue. And I would say in every state that's considered cannabis versus gaming, cannabis has been a total train wreck. I mean, it just doesn't work. It's fallen short of expectation. Gaming, on the other hand, has exceeded expectations, particularly online gaming, in every single state that has expanded its rules.
Yeah, no question. Since September, 2 high-performing Konami slot series have ranked in Eilers & Krejcik's list of top-performing parent games / premium lease. Both All Aboard and Ocean Spin have demonstrated consistently strong results, and both are available now on Dimension 49J, awarded first place for Best Slot Product in this year's GGB Gaming and Technology Awards. Learn more by visiting KonamiGaming.com/premiums. So one of the areas you're an expert in, and this is where you're launching your SPAC in the Asian market, they certainly have been hit very hard by the pandemic and have yet to even come close to recovering. What's your prognosis for the Asian market right now?
I mean, I think the Asian market is going to recover just like Las Vegas. I mean, we see some properties now in Las Vegas that are 20% more profitable than at the all-time peak. I mean, that's incredible. And it's not just volume, it's pricing. And so we're in a very low interest rate environment. Everybody wants to travel. As soon as the Asian markets open up, and I do think that will start to happen more next year, and will continue into 2023 and 24. By the time we're in 2025, we're very likely to see just absolute record numbers across the whole region for gaming.
Are you concerned about this recent crackdown? Just last week, they arrested a junket operator in Macau. Is that just going to hit the VIP market? Do you think that's going to trickle down to the premium and premium mass markets?
Well, I think the Macau government and the Chinese government have been very clear in terms of their objectives, and they haven't really hesitated. The messaging over the last several years, in my view, is a great place to do business, one that has incredible potential to recover. I think it would be better for investors to have a little bit more certainty as to the direction, And I do think that is likely to be forthcoming next year. But for now, investing in Macau, without the direction and certainty of the reopening and the licensing and, some of the other rules that have been proposed makes it complicated, uncertain. But it's in those very moments where you do have great opportunities as an investor. And Las Vegas Sands now is down over 50% from its highs. I suspect we'll be looking back at this podcast, Roger, and say, well, why didn't we buy more?
Right, exactly. Well, I keep doing that every time I see one of your companies take off, and I should have bought more right in the beginning, but that's the way it goes. So obviously, we've seen a big rebound in gaming in the U.S., but we haven't really seen an accompanying rebound in the non-gaming sector of the gaming industry. The meetings and conventions, the room rates look like they're pretty high now, though. But you think when those things come back, that the sky's the limit at that point?
Well, travel, for business is definitely in a different place than leisure travel. So conventions, meeting, MICE business is just, is recovering much more slowly, if at all, in some cities. But I would reflect back on this past summer. I went to my first conference and shook hands with people and exchanged business cards and had dinners and lunches. It's a great feeling. Everybody wants to do it as soon as people can get back into the trade show and convention environments. The Consumer Electronics Show is a standout to me. That's what people want to be doing, and particularly in great places like Las Vegas and Macau and Singapore that are offering some of the best restaurants and best experiences in the world.
Sure. So, you talked about, the impact of the coronavirus. Is it going to be a permanent impact of that? Obviously, there's some operational, advantages that happened during this thing that it's really kept over in terms of staffing and things like that. But are there other things that might be a bit more negative that we have to, keep an eye out for the next few years?
I think the timing of the recovery post-pandemic is, of course, extraordinarily difficult. From my perspective, it's forced this hybrid mentality. I often say, if you look at all the retailers, when Amazon started in business, very few survived being just retailers, and it did force a hybrid model. And other than Amazon, probably the standout is Walmart. Walmart was able to maintain its store structure, but then also grew Walmart.com, which is just an incredible online site. So the pandemic has really forced the biggest and best casino companies to think about ways to contact customers, both physically and then in the metaverse, if you will. And that is going to continue. And your touch points as an owner of a gaming business now have to be in both places. And I think that's probably the biggest change that I see. And if you're not doing that, then you really are likely to be left behind.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to speak with Sue Kim Bally's and the people at Penn National as well, Jay Snowden and his people. I think they really get it. Those two companies for sure, and MGM and Caesars are certainly on board as well. Is that the kind of thing you see, that there really has to be a total approach to gaming, whether it be in your property or online?
Absolutely. Those companies are the leaders at thinking about exactly what I'm just saying and sort of set the precedent for, if you're not an owner of a land-based casino and have that presence online and in the metaverse, as we think about how Facebook and the other tech companies view the next 10 years for consumption and commerce, you're going to get left behind.
Sure. So we've got these huge U.S. companies now, the MGMs, the Caesars. Some of the Bally's are certainly making some great strides. Do you see any of the smaller companies coming in? I mean, we've always heard about companies like Monarch and Maverick now. I mean, Eric Person's a great guy and really got some good ideas as well. Do you see any of these smaller companies, really being able to take that next step?
Nothing really stands out. What's the bigger companies are just getting bigger and stronger, and the smaller companies have been, to some extent disadvantaged, but there's always room in gaming. Since the very beginning of gaming, there's always room for the entrepreneur who thinks a little bit differently, who's willing to deviate to win, if you will. And I do think you mentioned Eric, is really, one of those people, and know him well from his time at Las Vegas Sands. And over the next 5 to 10 years, there's a changing of the guard coming, Soo Kim being another one who I'm a big fan of for Bally's, and it's going to be exciting to see how the landscape looks.
Yeah, no question. Well, Jason, you've done so well in gaming and been able to predict the winners and the losers so effectively. I'm going to continue to pay attention to you, and certainly you're a very good person to watch for 2022. And I congratulations on that designation.
Thanks so much, Roger. Great to see you, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hope you enjoyed this special edition of the podcast with thanks to Konami Gaming. Visit KonamiGaming.com/premiums for more on this year's best slot product, Dimension 49J. To learn more about how activist investors influence gaming companies, visit GGBmagazine.com. To get all the news of the gaming industry delivered to your desktop every Monday morning, visit GGBnews.com and enter the code GGB180 for a free subscription. Don't miss a single episode of the podcast. Sign up on Spotify or Apple Podcasts today. So we'll see you next time on the GGB Podcast.